you run your own freelance business? Or maybe you're thinking about picking up some business on the side? Well, then you need FreshBooks. FreshBooks is the quickest and easiest way to get invoices out to your clients. It's easy to use. It works anywhere, available from any device, on the desktop, iPhone, iPad, Android, and all of your data is backed up and secure. And it makes it really easy to get organized and get paid. You'll be tracking time, logging expenses, and invoicing your clients in no time. You can also save time billing, freeing up several days per month to focus on the work that you love, and you get paid faster. FreshBooks customers are paid on average 5 days faster because there's a link on the invoice that says pay me now. And it's a great way to grow your business. Plus, FreshBooks is offering a 30-day trial. That's right, 30-day trial if you try them out. So go to gofreshbooks.com/devchat and enter devchat in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Once again, for a 30-day trial, go to gofreshbooks.com/devchat and enter devchat in the How Did You Hear About Us section.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Freelancer Show. On our panel today, we have Jonathan Stark.
Hello.
And Kai Davis.
Hey, hey, hey.
And I'm Reuven Lerner. And this week, we are going to speak about how to get started in training. So, Kai, I don't know how much training you've done, but Jonathan and I have definitely done quite a bit. And that's my main gig nowadays. And it seems, I think Jonathan and Kai, you were both saying before we started recording that like you have a whole bunch of people in your mentoring programs who like the idea of training. Can you describe who these people are and why they're interested in training other than being very smart?
Sure. Go for it, Kai.
Sure. In my experience, it often is somebody who has an understanding of their specialization or their area of expertise, but has been charging either hourly or daily and is saying, hey, you know what? I want something where I'm able to provide more value to the client through training. It's going to be less intensive. I have to spend, let's say, less time on keyboard. I don't have to do as much programming, and it's going to provide value to whoever I am training. So they're looking for some way to graduate from, let's call it traditional freelancing and consulting, hourly or project-based, to something that's more strategic or training level. They're looking for another modality of doing business.
Yep, very similar with me. It's like when a student comes to work with me, the first thing I wonder is, what's your superpower? Like, what is your major strength? And a lot of times it's, especially if they're a little bit on the younger side, business-wise, not necessarily age-wise, they're super focused on their skills. They feel like they've achieved a degree of mastery of something like Angular is a really common one. And they're like, I can do Angular with my hands tied behind my back. And then I start hitting them with like, your customers don't care about that. They care about, how you're going to change their business. How would you change their business? And like, I don't know, maybe I should just do training instead. So it's kind of like a default position for somebody who's really good, has a high degree of confidence in a skill. I'm like, okay, is your audience going to be your peers and you're going to go out and train them? Or is your audience going to be businesses that you can transform with these particular skills that you happen to have, but aren't really the focus? And I think some people are actually cut out to be trainers. Some people are natural educators, and other people are just sort of retreating to that because they're a little bit nervous to have the conversations with past clients and potential clients about what value being great at Angular actually would bring to a pizza place. So for some people, I think when I talk to some people, I get a sense that certain ones are natural fit and they should do it, and other ones are maybe it's a little bit of a cop out maybe. Mm-hmm. But one thing I do, I'm curious to just sort of plant this seed, and we can maybe talk about it over the course of the episode. I'm curious. I tend to tell people that running a consultancy where you're doing either advisory work, never mind advisory work. Let's just say you're one of those companies we do Angular development and training. That scares me. And I'm curious what Reuven thinks about this, because to me, a dev shop and a training shop are two completely different things, even though they both are fundamentally based on a skill. They're just completely different businesses to run.
I don't know if they're completely businesses to run, but they're going to end up doing sort of different things in different ways. I know that there are a lot of companies that explicitly want trainers who are also active developers. That from their perspective, someone who's not in the trenches every day doing development, encountering problems, is just going to, over time at least, lose their connection, lose their touch. And people actually ask me, they say, well, if you haven't really done that many projects in the last few years, how do you know what people's problems are? And I tell them, well, first of all, because we talk about it in class. Second of all, I spend time investigating things, researching things. I write about it on my blog. I include it in my, in my courses. So you do need to like spend time doing stuff, which is a different. And the other thing is that you're going to be talking to different people at a company. So if you're a dev shop, you're going to be talking to like the VP of R&D or the CTO, and you're going to be working for them on some sort of whatever the model is. But if you're a training shop, you're going to be talking to the training manager, which could be the chief learning officer, the training manager, VP of HR, lots of different titles for that sort of thing. And it's wildly different budgets, wildly different types of schedules and expectations. So you can do both, but you're just going to be serving two different types of clients. And quite frankly, and here's the big dark secret of the training world, the training pays way better. So like what I discovered at some point was it pays better. They don't call me in the middle of the night with bugs, and I can schedule much further out in advance. This is a big win for me. Why am I fighting it?
And they'll pay in advance, I'm guessing?
I've never had, I know like you get people to pay in advance. I've never actually asked. I just get paid normally. Like some clients surprise me and they pay me right away, like on the final day or sometimes even a little earlier. But usually it's like within 2 weeks, worst case net plus 60 from the really stodgy companies that are annoying. But like that's the worst case scenario. And usually most of my clients pay soon enough, or worst case, it's like a mix. So that doesn't bother me. I've heard stories of people, I mean, especially from you, but I've heard stories from people of like doing training with big companies where they say, this is just how I work. And somehow they're able to arm wrestle the company into submission.
Yeah. Well, even if it's, I can tell you from experience, mine and others, that it is more likely to get paid in advance for a training than it is for a dev project.
That makes sense.
It's much harder to get paid in advance for a development project. If you care about that sort of thing. Yeah, I mean,
it doesn't bother me so much. I mean, the thing is also training is a product, right? We talk sometimes about productized consulting, and that's precisely what this is. Like, so when someone calls me up and says, hey, I've heard you teach Python, and they say, what are your courses? And I say, well, I have my intro Python course. I have my advanced Python course. I have my data science machine learning course, right? And so being able to rattle off a list of catalog items with specific prices, specific contents, and specific times means that you're first of all showing that you know what you're doing, right? They want to know that you're not just saying, oh yeah, I know a lot of Python, so I can teach it to you. No, like having a syllabus and having it clearly cut there is very good. And then some of them will want to negotiate more than others. And often when they want to negotiate over the content, they'll be throwing in all sorts of nonsensical stuff. And I'll say, listen, that's just not important. Let's get, like, especially with the intro Python course, let's just get the fundamentals out of the way. And over time, I've sort of learned to be more stubborn about certain things than others.
Interesting.
So I don't have a lot of training experience. And a question that comes to my mind is, if I or a listener who is in my shoes has specialty, has some domain expertise and wants to get started with training, I'm hearing you say that it's valuable to have a predetermined syllabus, essentially a course, a package put together that somebody's able to say, yes, this solves our needs, let's buy it. How do I go, though, from I know I could do a thing to, okay, this is a package that a client will buy?
A lot of trial and error. I mean, that's the unfortunate truth. I look back at some point last year or so at some of my first syllabi that I had and sent to clients. And it is just, facepalm embarrassment. I tried to put in way too much. I talked about things that didn't belong in a course. I'm sure that I gave them extremely superficial treatment. But you know what? They bought it and they invited me back. And over time, I sort of got more confident. The mantra I always say is every year, I remove content and increase exercises and people are happier. So don't feel, in fact, it's a bad idea on all fronts, pedagogically and business-wise, to throw in lots of stuff into a course. Make your intro course, like it's usually easiest for people to come with an intro course right? So come up with an intro course to whatever subject it is, Angular, React, whatever it should be, right? Come with an intro course. And if you say, oh, I really would also like to teach X and Y and Z, then you have topics for an advanced course. And I promise you, some things for your basic course, you will get rid of and you'll put into an advanced course. And that gives you a second syllabus you can then offer to people. Mm-hmm. And you'll lather, rinse, repeat.
I could not agree more about starting with intro. That's true with books, all kinds of educational products. I think it's easiest, and it's easiest on like 3 fronts to start with intro material. And yes, you're right. Reuven's right. You'll put in too much stuff and stuff that actually is advanced or stuff that is irrelevant. But if you start with intro, you've kind of got the largest possible market, and they're the ones that are going to be the most blown away by how awesome your course is. Mm-hmm. Where if you start off with the really fancy stuff that you like to do every day, or the stuff that really floats your boat, and you're an expert, then you're going to have the toughest audience, and you're going to have the biggest problem with imposter syndrome. You're going to have the smallest audience, mm-hmm. because it's going to be just logically, there are going to be fewer advanced users of a particular framework or technology. You could perhaps charge more for an advanced course, but it's going to be harder in a lot of ways. So I could not agree more with starting at intro level and going from there, learning as you go.
I would also say, sorry.
No, please.
I mean, I'm teaching my second advanced Python course, or starting the second one. Started today, second one in the last week. And advanced courses are hard in a whole lot of different ways. In addition to everything Jonathan said, an incredible variety of people will show up to an advanced course. So today, I was supposed to have 16 people in the class. Half of them dropped out in the last week because they had work pressure, so 8 people showed up. Of those, there's an advanced Python class, mind you. 2 have been using Python every day for the last few years. 2 or 3 others have heard Python is sort of interesting. And the rest, as they said, like they can read Python. They use it once every few months. So an advanced class is going to attract that sort of variety that makes it much harder to teach, because you're going to be constantly worrying, is it too advanced? Is it too easy? If you start with an intro course, you can say, this is for people with no experience. Or if people come with some experience, they know to expect that there'll be some things that bore them.
Yeah, teaching to advanced. There's another thing that teaching to advanced students is difficult, where good luck if you find one that disagrees with your spaces versus tabs or something like that. and the other, or maybe has really, really deep expertise in a particular edge case aspect of the technology and will fight you like crazy on it, or will flat out know more about it than you. Because like you might have a more broad experience across an advanced spectrum of topics, but this person works, on the like a web, for example, they work with local storage, or they work with service workers all day long. So I could be teaching an advanced front end course, and somebody's like, oh, well, that thing you did with service workers is a little out of date because they're about, blah, blah, blah. And that's just one tiny piece of like a whole, 3-day class. And that's fine. Like, I know how to deal with that. Like, be like, all right, that you're probably right. You tell us what should I change? I don't care about that. It's fine with me. I don't have an ego about that kind of thing. But that can really throw a new teacher, a new instructor will be like, oh.
Right. And I have several sort of phrases, canned responses, ways I deal with that. First of all, I tell people that more than 50% of what I teach is based on people's questions that I didn't know how to answer. And I go and I research it and then include it in the course in the future when it's relevant. Second thing is I say, look, like now I have homework, right? So now I have to go back and figure it out, and I'll come back to you and tell you what it is. And just in general, if you tell the student, wow, I didn't know that, thank you so much for sharing that. And if you're honest about it, like if you want to learn, if you say like, one of the best things about teaching this class is that I get to learn new things, their ego will be gratified and satisfied. And you don't have to tell the next time you teach the class that you didn't know this a week ago. Right? Like they don't know. And as far as they're concerned, you're coming as the big expert and you're showing them a brilliant new technique. Yeah. So, but be
I'll do it.
positive about it because that will happen.
Yeah, I do a similar thing where if somebody asks me a question that I have no idea what the answer is, I'll be like, wow, I should probably know the answer to that, but I don't. Does anybody here know the answer? And sometimes you'll get someone that'll be like, yeah, the security policy for this particular thing works like this. And it'll be like, oh, sounds like, and then they feel smart in front of their peers. We've gotten past the issue and moved on. Or someone will say, or no one will raise their hand. No one knows. So then it's like, I don't feel as bad that I got stumped. And I might, if we have time, I'll say, let's figure it out together right now. And then you can see how I would approach tackling a problem like this, which is sometimes more valuable than just, here's what the concatenation operator looks like. So there's but again, we're really just piling on. Just if you're just getting started, start with an intro course because you need to have some powerful juju once you get up against people who are actually really, really good already.
So here's a follow-up question. Let's say I decided to start with an intro course. How do I determine what I want that course to be on? Is it by looking at my discipline, looking at my technical knowledge, looking at what the companies need? How do I put all this together for that first intro course?
I've done a few things. And it's a lot of iteration. So the most recent course I put together is in data science and machine learning. And so I put together the course based on, I read a few books, I watched a whole bunch of conference videos, and sort of I started to get a sense of, okay, what are the basics that people need in this discipline to get something done? A really useful thing to do was to look on Stack Overflow under the tag for data science, machine learning, and other such things in Python. And so I saw what were the most common questions that people kept coming up with. What were the really burning issues that everyone seemed to want to know? Mm-hmm. And so then I put together what seemed like a good syllabus. I went and taught it the first time, and it was terrible. It was really, really terrible. And I told people this is the first time I'm teaching this, so please be patient. I literally every 5 to 10 minutes wrote down a question that someone had that I didn't know the answer to. I had 60 questions by the end of the 2-day course. And this was after working really, really hard for a few months to put this course together. I then worked really, really hard again to go through those questions and look on Stack Overflow and elsewhere for those questions and those subjects to sort of expand the reach a bit. And the second time I did it, absolutely positively better. And you just sort of repeat that and iterate it enough times that you sort of squeeze the problems out of it. And people are amazed. This is the really cool thing. If you've figured out the things people want to know, then you'll see the look on their faces as you answer the questions just as they're about to ask them.
Yes. They're you have them falling forward into the learning process. That's right, the best. Right.
But it takes, yeah.
Oh, please. No, I don't want to interrupt. This is great.
No, it just takes a lot of time and a lot of listening and a lot of mistakes, which is why, by the way, I strongly recommend that anyone who wants to teach, do it first at user group meetings, at meetups, on webinars, because you will feel yourself as you're teaching where things are rusty, not obvious, where your examples fall flat. And better to fall flat with a free audience or a volunteer audience than a paying client.
There's a subtext here that I want to call out, which is that knowing your subject matter cold does not make you a good teacher. So, it's obvious. It's obvious. I mean, maybe it's obvious in what we're saying, but I feel like it's not obvious. Just because you're a genius at Angular does not mean you're able to translate that into something comprehensible to someone who is a complete noob at Angular. And being able to structure a course and pace it and hit your timings so that people can have lunch at a reasonable point in the day, there's a lot to it. So that kind of goes back to my thing earlier about it's two different disciplines. Doing a dev, running a dev shop and running a training shop, it's two different disciplines. It's not that you can't do it, but you're serving two masters at that point.
This is known as pedagogical content knowledge, right? The content knowledge is the knowing the, say, programming, and the pedagogical content knowledge is knowing how to explain the programming to other people. And it is definitely a separate skill. And anyone listening who has ever been to college or university is very familiar with the brilliant, I'm probably familiar with the brilliant professor who does amazing research who cannot teach to save their life, right? So don't be that person, which means that you're going to have to work on your teaching techniques. How do you introduce things? What are your examples? What stories do you use? What jokes do you use? Right? It's really, in so many ways, I compare it to being a stand-up comedian. Like you're up in front of an audience, you need to grab their attention, and every day you're going to sort of watch their reactions to things you say. And you say, okay, this joke worked, this joke did not. And you're going to keep improving until you sort of get rid of the bad stuff, and you'll keep trying new things. Yeah.
How do you get the first paying client?
That's the hardest question. And I don't have a great answer. I have a few okay ansers. I don't know. Jonathan, why don't you give it a shot first?
Yeah, I'll start while you think about it. So originally, thinking back, my first series of training gigs were teaching the FileMaker professional training series, which was a super great way to enter into the teaching training because it was a curriculum that was put together by the company. So FileMaker Inc. creates a bunch of software products, including FileMaker Pro. And every year they have a certification process for trainers to learn how to teach core concepts and advanced concepts. And they put together like 200 or 300 page ring binder of something like 12 modules. And they certify third parties to teach it. So I went around and did that. I cannot honestly remember why I was qualified for the course to become a trainer. I can't remember that, but I expect that people could figure that out. So if there is such a thing still in the world to teach somebody else's training class, that's a very interesting thing to do because it gives you a little bit of a training wheels entree into the market. And if a company has gone to the trouble to put together a certification process like that, you can pretty well bet that there's a market out there, that they already have clients who are looking to hire someone to fly out to their site to train in person. And that was the case for me. So I was able to get better at teaching FileMaker. I was highly confident in my skills of building stuff with FileMaker at the time, but I wasn't 100% comfortable with teaching it, but having all of the materials provided to me. And then you go to a course where they train you as a trainer, not really in how they sort of teach the materials to you. They walk you through the materials. They tell you what the common questions are. They show you the mechanics of how to work the workbook. They don't really teach you how to be a good trainer though. So then I would sort of get called upon it was sort of like magic. I automatically get clients and you just go out and do it and get better and better at it. And eventually you start to be like, I could probably put this together on my own or for a different product or different technology. So that was my start. So I kind of training wheels my way into it. And then after that, I started creating my own materials for certain things, in some cases with third-party help and in some cases independently. So follow-up ones, I think, were primarily with O'Reilly. But that was my start.
Can I break that down a little bit just to make sure I'm understanding it?
Mm-hmm.
So you started, it sounds like, with positioning based on a technology. You validated that there was a need for training based on FileMaker publishing these training materials, offering certification. You saw that there was demand for it. You got the certification. You were able to address that market demand. People want to learn how to do this thing that the company is teaching me how to teach people. And then from there, you were able to say, hey, now that I've taught this, now that I've been in this marketplace, now that I've done more training, I could see additional problems I could solve using these skills. Let me put together my own materials to address these problems and create new lines of business. Am I understanding that correctly?
This episode is sponsored by Linode. Linode is offering listeners of this podcast a $20 credit, which is good for 4 free months at their lowest plan. Their plans start at 1 gigabyte of RAM, for $5 a month. You can get your servers in any of their 10 data centers, and their high memory plans start at 16 gigabytes. Get a server running in under a minute. They do hourly billing with a monthly cap on all plans and add-on services like backups, node balancers, Longview, etc. VMs for full control, running Docker containers, encrypted disks, VPNs, etc. You can run a private Git server. They provide native SSD storage, 200 gigabit network, and Intel E5 processors. They have 24/7 friendly support, even on holidays, and a 7-day money-back guaranteed. So go check them out at linode.com/freelancer show.
Yes, there's one. I didn't do that with FileMaker though, but yeah, let me just, that was easy to misinterpret. I didn't then go and create my own FileMaker training. Later, when I wasn't doing FileMaker anymore, I was like, oh, I know how to teach software. And I've written books about it. So that, like, writing a book turns you into an expert because you have to go through such a process to write the book. So I would be like, oh, I'm going to, O'Reilly's like, hey, could you teach a phone gap class? Sure. So yeah, I know how to teach and I know the material. And when you put those two things together, it's pretty easy to create materials and be able to execute them in a way that's going to make people better at, it's going to have a positive outcome. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I just wanted to point out that I didn't try to compete with the existing FileMaker materials. I went off, in a different direction.
Excellent.
Right.
No, that makes perfect sense.
Look, the main question here, and this is the one I get all the time that's the hardest to answer, is let's even say I'm a brilliant trainer with a great course. How do I get into these companies to train? And you can, in theory, I know, Jonathan, you've had, actually both of you have had a lot of good success, both on your own and sort of teaching people how to do outreach. Right, so contacting companies and saying, "Hey, I think I can do some good training for you." My experience in doing that so far has been minimal but bad, and at some point I'm going to try to get into it again using the techniques you guys have talked about. But it's not obvious to me from speaking with training managers whether they will necessarily respond positively, just because they go with the people they know. Mm-hmm. And so my recommendation often to get into these companies is speak at a conference. And when people come up to you after you speak, assuming you give a good talk, those are going to be people who potentially will want to bring you into their company for training. And you can talk to them. So someone comes up to you and says, wow, that was a really great talk. And we use XYZ in my company. And you can say to them, well, I do training in that. Do you need that? That person can then have a conference call with you and their training manager. And then you've been sort of hooked in. And then it's not you making a cold call to the training manager. It's someone on the inside saying, hey, I think this person would be good. Let's try to incorporate them. Mm-hmm. And so getting in through the technical person who does not make the budgeting decisions, who does not make the final decisions, is, in my opinion, sort of the best way to do it. But it's a long game, or a medium game at least, because you need to first get out there and you need to give talks. You need to be impressive, and you need to sort of wait until it happens. There might be more aggressive ways to do it, by the way.
Yeah, that's the most aggressive inbound way, in my opinion. I can't think of a more aggressive inbound approach. There's a sort of underlying thing here that I think, yet another underlying thing here, which is that what we've been talking about so far is B2B training, and not like hey, I've got a video course on my website. So I'm wondering because I've done training, like I said, through FileMaker. It really wasn't through FileMaker. It was just using their materials, and then they would promote the list of people that were certified to do the training. So that was definitely, they did a lot of marketing on my behalf, which was nice because that I would have stunk at that at the time. And then I also did training through Americana for a little while before they got bought by Twitter. And then I did some stuff through O'Reilly, and I've done things on my own. But the thing that I haven't done is, like, I haven't put a video course up on like Egghead or lynda.com. And I wonder if that is another decent inbound approach, where you've got a video course that a lot of people are watching, and then they're like, look, I need to get this person to come in and teach us directly, or does it cannibalize that kind of work? Do you have any experience with that, Reuven?
I don't. People have actually suggested me recently because I'm starting to like do some video courses online and sell them. I'm going to be moving into doing a lot of recorded video courses. And someone just said to me in the last week or two, well, why don't you put them up on like Coursera or Udemy, or I don't even know enough about them to know sort of which one would be which. I'm sure they'll be delighted by their strong branding in my mind. And their point was, put it up there, charge $10, $20, and get your name out to a whole lot of people. It could be that works very well. I wouldn't be surprised if there are people that do that. My worry, though, is that those marketplaces are so saturated with people teaching just about anything. What are the odds of someone finding my course? Whereas I put time and effort and money into growing my mailing list, and I've now got like 6,000 people who every week are hearing from me, who, when I surveyed them just in the last week or two, told me overwhelmingly, these are the topics we want you to teach. Mm-hmm. So I think I'd rather try selling to my list, even if it's sort of harder to do in some ways, rather than get lost in the sea of Udemy.
Yeah, it's a tough call. Like I know of people who are making good money on lynda.com. I have a student who makes 4 figures per month from some egghead videos. He's got 1 or 2 courses on egghead. It's not like, retirement money, but it's nothing to sneeze at either. And I know a lot of people listening probably their eyes are popping out of their head, imagining like 4-figure per month check, a few $1,000s a month just showing up from something they recorded a year ago. Yeah, but I just can't. I have the worst time getting behind building something on somebody else's platform unless you're genuinely leveraging their audience to bring them over to your platform. Mm-hmm. So, making a name for yourself. So like, I could imagine writing a book for a mainstream publisher again, even though I've really, really been blown away by how awesome self-publishing is. I could imagine going over to, a Penguin or something, or a Harcourt Brace or whatever the I don't even know. They're all like consolidated now, but whatever the big business publisher is these days, and doing a business book that's sort of about trading time for money or the evils of trading time for money. But it would be a strategic move, and maybe there'd be an advance, and maybe there'd be maybe it would be, on lists and stuff, but that wouldn't be the point. It would be a strategic move to leverage a big publisher to attract people to expensive problem, and like, it's just like a piece. Yes, maybe there would be some money, maybe it would be a lot of money, but really I see it as like something way, way, way up near the top of the funnel. And it's not even the main thing. So I see it as more of a promotional move or a marketing move than like a product, even though it is technically a product. So if from a strategic standpoint, dear listener, maybe someone that you could talk to that has had good success with something like, let's just say Egghead or Front End Masters. There's like 1 million of them. Maybe they've had good success with that, and you are like, oh yeah, that I'm going to try that too. Look past the money that they're making and find out if they've gotten any customers from it. Mm-hmm. Because that's to me, that is the difference between just getting by and actually getting ahead. So if you're not getting, this is why I don't sell on Amazon, because I don't get the contact information. Like, I don't know who has my book. That drives me crazy. So
I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Wow. It never occurred to me.
Yeah. I mean, there's other reasons to not sell on Amazon. For example, they advertise all of your competitors right there on your sales page. So, okay, I'm fine with that. I don't really care about competition too much. I feel like I've differentiated myself enough to not care about that. But I just don't know. I'm not given their email addresses. I'm like, forget that. Well, what's the point? Why not just sell it on my own site? Well, there's all this. Yeah, I just don't believe that there's a whole bunch of people browsing around Amazon.com looking for hourly billing books. I just don't believe it. I would rather do a short book that is 99 cents or something that is just polluted with links to my site. Is essentially a pure promotional product. I would want to do it in a way that was authentic and not jerky, actually valuable. But I don't, selling on Amazon, I get the advantages of it, but they're not the advantages for me. So to bring it back to training, if you, dear listener, have a friend who's making what you feel like is great money on one of these platforms, realize that if they're not actually getting clients out of it, if they're not building their own client base, their own audience, then it's really just it's just cash, which sometimes is important, but is not strategic at all.
I would also mention, another way that you can get into one of these companies that just occurred to me is you might have friends. Some people do. And if your friends work in a company,
developers don't have friends, Reuven.
Yeah. If you don't have friends, then it will be your friend. In any event, welcome to what it's like to be one of my training classes where I crack myself up for a few minutes at a time. People just love it. So sometimes, you have friends, colleagues who might be able to tell you about what they're doing in their company if they're using a technology that you know. And maybe they can arrange for a meeting, an introduction with the training manager, right? Again, that sort of getting in there is not a bad way. You want to basically have someone vouch for you. I also think one of the problems with doing these sorts of videos on one of these marketplaces, and it might just be that I'm still too new at it, I don't see a lot of crossover between the B2B and B2C businesses. I have lots of training going on with companies that is not translated into very many book sales or video sales or whatever. And in the same way, my large list is not translated into lots of people inviting me to teach for their company. Now, it could be that I'm just doing it the wrong way, right? That's, in fact, I would say quite likely. But people, when you're reading something, when you read a great blog post, you're not like, wow, this person is brilliant. I am going to invite them to come teach at my company. Rather, you say, oh, yeah, I read this great blog post. So I think you want to you have to position yourself as the business trainer in subject X. And I always tell people, mention this. If you get up and give a talk at a user group meeting, tell them I do training. I can't tell you how many times, I would give a talk and people would say to me, oh, so do you do training? I think, yeah, it's not obvious. No.
Yeah, why do you think I'm here?
Right. It is not at all obvious.
No, it's not. 100%. Yes. You have to plant the seed. Even if you, I'm extremely gun shy about selling from the stage when I'm doing a training, but you can at least say something like, in my training courses, I teach students make some reference to it just to
yes.
Plant that seed that there's that light bulb. So someone in the audience would be like, oh, that's a great idea. I should hire Reuven. I should have my HR manager hire Reuven to come and teach this to all of to the 15 people who bug me incessantly about Python. Well, I'll just have Reuven come in and teach them, then they don't have to bug me anymore.
And it can get even better because somewhere there are. Someone once said 80% of everything is crap, something along those lines. There are a lot of trainers out there who are making money and doing a terrible job. And so if you plant the seed at the right time with the right company, someone's going to say, wow, we just had someone come and do a terrible job training in technology X. This person teaches technology X. I see them on stage right now. Let's invite them in. It can't be worse, and it might be a lot better.
Right. Yeah. If you want to get a little bit more persuasive, you could say, if you've got a big, when I taught this class for Cisco, they had these kinds of questions because, that relates to their business. But you might have different kinds of questions. And what did I just say? I just said I taught training at Cisco.
That's right.
Which I have. I think you have as well. But it's the same. It's the same kind of thing. You don't have to be jerky about it. It's context. If you contextualize it, you can plant the seed in people's minds, and they'll come running up to you after you're done and be handing you cards.
Right, and success and/or experience will breed success and experience. First of all, if you teach at a company and they like you, they will invite you back. right? They will invite you back for the same course, and you can then upsell them on additional courses. Why do you think I have an advanced Python course? Because they came to me and said, people want advanced stuff. And I said, oh, sure, I can do that. And now it's almost inevitable that a company that comes to me for an intro course will then ask me to do an advanced course. Like it's almost clear. And secondly, people in high tech move around. And so the number of times that companies have called me saying, yes, we heard from one of our employees who at his previous company attended one of your courses, that is just more and more common as time goes on too. And so over time, you don't even have to market yourself. Yeah, like the nature of high tech will just sort of do its work for you.
But you are playing a medium to long game. You know, you're fairly soft sell, and lots of planting the seed, lots of kind of just do a great job, and the word will spread sort of approach, which is great. I think it's tough to, when with someone who's just getting started, you don't have that, right? So what are some of the common questions that people have when they're asking you about getting started with training? Like what are the real stuff that maybe you've almost forgotten about if people weren't asking?
Besides putting together a syllabus, besides sort of who do I reach out to? Oh, here's a trick. You can sometimes look, because a lot of times if a company wants training in a subject, it's because they can't find people who already know that subject. So sometimes I've gone through like help wanted lists. Like company X is looking for Python developers. Oh, that means they need Python training, right? Because they're not going to be able to find them, and so you can possibly pitch to them. You want to, again, like I think you just want to find people who have that need, who recognize that doing training will bring them up to speed faster. Look, you can call it like if you're a developer and if you've been working with any development shops using that technology, ask them, right? Say, who are your clients, or what companies have you been working with that are using this that need more help that you've been doing, right? That the dev shop has been giving them additional development time for.
Wait, say that again. I didn't follow that.
So let's say you're a developer and you have been working with, like, as a subcontractor to, or just associated with, or your friends at a dev shop. That dev shop might be doing contract work for a company, and that company then could use extra help, extra hands and brains that know Python, JavaScript, whatnot.
Gotcha.
And so that might be an opportunity. Like they might know who's desperate for the technology that you know, and thus you can pitch to them.
One path that worked for me, I've done a little bit of training, custom trainings for clients. One path that worked for me was working as a consultant to solve a particular problem. During that engagement, identifying any training related problems or any problems that training could be a solution to, and then talking to my point of contact, end of engagement, saying, hey, it was great to work on this. 7 or 8 years ago, I did a number of CRM integrations. So, hey, it was great, getting you over onto Salesforce. Let's talk about training your team on how to use Salesforce effectively. And I found it to be not an easy upsell, but a natural upsell. It would make sense. Oh, yeah, we just invested in getting this thing. We probably should make sure our people know how to use the thing. I was told no a number of times until I was told yes. And once I was told yes, I put together essentially a custom training that I was then able to reuse in future trainings. But I think that also might be a potential path for consultants and freelancers who are saying, well, how do I get started training? Well, if you've been doing work for clients, look around, talk with those clients and see, are there problems that a training type solution would make sense for, and then propose it.
I'll tell you my one worry with doing so the advantage of doing that is that they know you, they trust you, and getting in that's a great way to get in the door. The danger with that is that it's not going to be from the training budget, or they're not going to pay this training sort of money, but it could be that's not what you have to optimize for, right? You don't necessarily need to be optimizing for highest income right away. You want to be getting your foot in the door so that you can then tell other companies, hey, I just did training for company X and they've invited me back, right? It gives you that seal of approval. I'll just say, I know we have to go to picks really soon, but I just want to say one more thing, which is you want to get practice speaking in front of an audience. So many people are terrified about public speaking, and it's a matter of practice. After a while, you get used to it and it won't throw you anymore. So use whatever opportunity you can to get up, talk to people, give talks, short, long, whatever. And after a while, you realize, oh, it's just an audience. I'm just talking in front of them. And being able to present confidently in front of people is a skill that people are really bowled over by.
I could not agree with that more.
All right, we got to go to picks before some of our crew has to take off and they have work. Boy,
Pumpkin
work.
time.
What? Pumpkin time. Like that.
For you, the listeners of Freelancer Show, Loot Crate is offering an opportunity to save 10% on any new subscription at lootcrate.com. Just enter the promo code BRIDGE10 for 10% savings. Loot Crate is one of my favorite things. Every month I get a box in the mail, costs less than $20, and it comes with all kinds of goodies. I have stuff from, just looking at my shelf, Batman, Spider-Man, Ninja Turtles, Back to the Future, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and much, much more. So if you're a geek, a gamer, anything like that, and you want cool stuff to put around your office, cool t-shirts, comic books, etc., then definitely check out Loot Crate. To save 10% on your new subscription, go to lootcrate.com/Ruby. Again, that's lootcrate.com/Ruby to save 10% on any new subscription. Enter the promo code BRIDGE10 for 10% savings.
Jonathan, what you got for us?
Sure. Well, first I will point listeners, perhaps new listeners, to episode 227 of the Freelancer Show, which is called Building Courses with Anna Sobramowitz. I hope I'm saying that correctly. And she was a delightful guest who had all sorts of interesting information about creating courses. I think if I remember correctly, it was more of the email course variety and the online, online B2C course variety, but lots of good content there. And I'm going to also point people to a TED Talk that I saw recently. This is totally unrelated to the episode, but it was so good. I've been telling a lot of people about it. It's a TED Talk by a fellow named Joseph Pine, who wrote The Experience Economy and Mass Customization. And I'm way down the Joseph Pine rabbit hole right now with sort of new economy type stuff, because of course I'm really interested in pricing and the differences between products and services that are low price commoditized sorts of things and really high price luxury. You can pay anywhere from 99 cents to $2 million for a watch. Why is that? And so I'm like super down this path. So I think a great starting point for folks is the TED Talk that he did. It's called What Customers Want. People should check that out, and I'll put it in the show notes. That's it for me.
Excellent. Kai, what you got?
I got two picks. First one would be for any listeners that are unaware of it. I send out a daily email on freelancing and consulting and how to get more clients. And you could go ahead and sign up for that at kaidavis.com/daily, KAIDAVIS.com/daily. My second pick is actually a fiction book by Robin Sloan that I absolutely, absolutely love. He's the author of Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore, but he also just released Sourdough, which is a very beautiful and intriguing story of creating things within the tech culture. It's a fiction book that explores, I'm struggling how to define it. It explores how we aren't really making things when we're working only in the tech world, that there's something we lose when we work with our hands or when we aren't working with our hands. I'm doing a horrible job of explaining it. It's a wonderful book. I highly recommend it. It's my pick for the week.
Excellent. I got three quick picks. One of them is I've been using Zoom more and more, joining many others who do it, for my coaching, for just conversations with people online. It's really great. Number two is, I mentioned earlier, I think that that I often see sort of training as similar to doing stand-up comedy. And so I actually have been watching slowly but surely the Steve Martin masterclass on how to do comedy, stand-up comedy. And I find it to be very insightful in terms of putting material together, working through it, editing it. Besides, it's just a delight to see, Steve Martin. And number three is for people who are interested in training. I've got Trainer Weekly, trainerweekly.com. Every week you get a new tip about training, whether it's pedagogy, like how to teach, whether it's logistics, like what do you put in your bag, what to do when you're sick, do you eat lunch with your students, and then also the business, like finding clients and doing exercises. So if anyone is interested in training, I definitely think Trainer Weekly could be of interest to you. And that's about it. Jonathan and Kai, thank you both very much for joining us, and our listeners as well. And we will see you all next week on The Freelancer Show.
See you then.
Bandwidth for this segment is provided by CacheFly, the world's fastest CDN. Deliver your content fast with CacheFly. Visit CACHEFLY.com to learn more.